वाहेगुरु जी का खालसा वाहेगुरु जी की फतेह। श्लोक महला पहला। सिमल रुख सराया अथ दीर्घ अत मच। In this Shabad, Guru Nanak Dev Ji starts with an example, and this example will be tied in to Guruji's entire message. In this Bhakti, Guruji starts by describing a tree. It's a simil tree, and it's said to be as straight as an arrow. It's supposed to be very tall and very thick. So this is a very large type of tree, and it's beautiful to look at. And Guruji will continue describing it in the next panktis. Oje aaye asakar jai narasikit. Guruji now describes the relation of the tree with those who come to the tree, those such as birds or other creatures. So those birds who hope to go to the tree, they depart disappointedly. And Guruji will describe in the next pankti why they are departing in such a disappointed way. Phal fikke full bakbake, kam na aave pat. And now Guruji describes how this tree is useless to these birds because the fruits, which are the phal, are tasteless, fikke, and the flowers are nauseating. They make the birds kind of sick. So they leave the tree because the tree has become useless to them because it doesn't provide anything. Even the leaves are useless, something that they can use to make their nests or anything. Those have also seem to be useless for the birds. So that is why they are leaving disappointedly. Mithat nivi nanaka guna changyaya tat. In this pankti, Guruji states one of his main points of the Shabad. We've seen previous that there's been an example of this tree that in its essence is almost useless to the birds or its environment around it, and it does not benefit by helping others. And that's because it lacks the sweetness and humility. Guruji says that we need sweetness and humility within ourselves so we don't end up like that tree, because that will lead us to virtue and goodness, because sweetness and humility are the essence of virtue and goodness. And Guruji will reinforce this point in later panktis, but Guruji is just stating it here for us. So we don't want to end up like that tree because we want to help others, including nature. We want to help nature and we want to help others, and in that way we can gain virtue. We could in a way be good, and that's what Guruji is trying to describe here, and Guruji will reinforce that point in the other panktis. Sabko neeme aap kyon, parko neeve na koi. Guruji here is saying that everyone wants to bow down to themselves, and that everyone has some sort of a self-importance, and they want to look all nice, and they want to be presented nicely, and they think that they're better, and they think others should bow down to themselves, and they bow down only to themselves. They see themselves as better, and this is in relation to how the tree sees itself in a way. The tree stands up all straight, and it looks all nice, but it doesn't help anyone else out. It doesn't bow down to the birds. It doesn't give fruit that are tasty and sweet. It doesn't give useful flowers or useful leaves. And then Guruji continues in the pankti by saying that no one bows down to another. So this is again what I was saying. The tree doesn't bow down to the birds, just like how some people don't bow down to others in a respect way or in a way of showing helpfulness, usefulness. So Guruji here is just pointing that out and making that relation stronger for us to understand. Here Guruji is actually describing the lack of sweetness and humility. People who do not bow down to others other than themselves lack humility, and they are sour people, because sweet people will be, respectful and will bow down to others as a sign of respect, and it's sweet, and they have some virtue and they have goodness within themselves in their essence. But sour people, those who lack humility and do not have virtue but instead have self-importance, do not bow down to others, and they are just like that tree, and they end up driving everyone away, just like how the tree drives the birds away. So that's the relationship that Guruji wants us to understand, and Guruji will be going on in the next Bhakti on another concept that relates to this idea. Dar tarajo toliye niveso gora hoy. Guruji in this Bhakti gives an example of a scale, and this is the balancing scale where you can weigh weights, different weights, and see which one is heavier. Guruji says when someone places something on the balancing scale and weighs something, the side which has the heavier object will go down. And Guruji is just setting up this example that will be, again, reinforcing his main point. So this is just the example of a scale that Guruji is using in this Bhakti. Aparadi duna neve jo hanta mergai. In this Bhakti, Guruji describes someone who does bow down, and this is not the right type. The example is given of a deer hunter, someone who is described as a sinner because they're taking another's life, and they bow down twice as much. And you can say that the deer hunter has to sneak around, so they're bowing down twice as much. But this bowing is useless, and this bowing is like the one that is described in the previous Bhakti, the heavier side bowing down, and this heavier side is full of more sin, and that is why it's bowing down. This is not the bowing down that Guruji describes previously in the beginning, a bowing down to others in a way to show sweetness and humility. And this is why someone like that bowing down is useless. And Guruji will describe why that is useless and what is the meaning of that bowing down from the deer hunter. Sis nevai kyatiye je hriday kushande jai. In this Bhakti, Guruji describes what is the meaning of bowing down as someone such as a deer hunter. Guruji asks what is to be achieved by bowing down now, when the heart is still impure. So Guruji is describing the heart of the deer hunter, how it's still impure and full of sin. And that is why bowing down twice as much can also mean on the scale that Guruji described a Bhakti ago. Bowing down twice as much on that scale would mean that you have more sin. It's heavier. And Guruji can also be talking about bowing down as a sign of forgiveness, and how bowing down essentially is useless when your heart is still full of that sin because you were bowing down to catch the animal. That interpretation of bowing down is sneaking around as a hunter to catch game. So yeah, the examples that Guruji has in here all reinforce the idea of sweetness and humility, and how someone as a deer hunter lacks those because they lack goodness and they are out there killing. So Guruji is against that act, that selfish act. They're not bowing down to the animals or helping out. Instead, they're taking away and killing. And that relates to the tree again, how the tree doesn't bow down and does not have the humility to help the birds, and doesn't have the sweetness in its fruit. And this also applies to us. We might not be deer hunters, but we have some sort of a self-importance. We don't bow down to others or help others because we have that self-importance in which we think that we're better. So Guruji is telling us to refrain from these things, or else we might be all nice and tall like the tree, but instead we'll be rotten and heavy, full of sin, and we'll be bowing down twice as much on the scale. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.